Yo, what's up? It's Zibbity Zealand back with another hot and fresh episode of. Shoot me. Wait. It's the United States. That might actually happen. I'm joking. But it's time to break down this new Champions League. Is it good? Is it bad? What the fuck's going on? Don't worry, I have all the answers. Because as a football manager addict, I have been playing in this new Champions League format for a long time. And of course, it kicked off on Tuesday with mild drama. I don't know if you would call Bayern committing war crimes against Dinamo Zagreb, then yeah, there was a little bit of drama going on. But Real Madrid doing its its whole cat and mouse, oh, we're dead, we're alive thing. Like, a lot of fun stuff happened, but mild amounts of drama. Anyways, this is the Champions League stage this year. You might notice that table is a little big. We got to zoom out just a little bit to be able to see all of it. That's because there's 36 teams in one table. But don't worry, they're not all going to play each other home and away. That would be a whopping 70 games, even though that is definitely UEFA's wet dream. We're not quite there yet. But what is happening, very briefly, is that this collection of teams has still been sorted into 4 pots. Okay, this is your educational experience. We're going to get to my thoughts on this entire thing in a second. But they're sorted into 4 pots. And essentially, each one of those pots denotes how good a team is. So pot 1, best team, pot 4, worst teams, right? It's all based off of the European coefficient ranking of each team. So this is actually the same as it was before, except before each group would have 1 team from pot 1 team from pot 2, 1 team from pot 3, and I trust you and that thing in between your ears can probably figure out where pot 4 is going to end up. But basically now the group stage has been remodeled into one giant league where everybody plays 8 matches instead of 6. Well, Zealand, how could they possibly come up with a fair way to play 8 matches when you're in a table of 35 other teams? Well, you play 2 teams from each pot. Obviously, that's what happens. You play 2 teams from each pot. You play 1 team from pot 1 on the road, 1 team from pot 1 at home, 1 team from pot 2 on the road, 1 team from pot 2 at home. Right now, depending on which team you get from a pot, like you could get RB Leipzig, or you could get Real Madrid at a pot 1, right? So there is still the possibility to get an easy schedule. There's still the possibility to get a difficult schedule. It's all still on the table, but the idea is basically to try and balance out the number of matches that you are playing. So in those 8 matches, we're going to end up with a top 8, which is bada bing right up here right now. Anyways, teams that happen to have won the first match, including Sparta Prague, which very exciting for them. Celtic, Aston Villa, all up there. If you finish in the top 8, you go straight to the round of 16. So that's 8 teams clipped off, and they move straight to the round of 16. Then, if you finish 9 through 24, you go into the playoff round. Okay, now if you finish, from 9 to 16, you are seeded for this playoff round. So that's where the better teams are supposed to be. And if you finish 17 to 24, then you are going to be unseeded. So you're going to be drawn against one of the teams that finished ahead of you in the table in the playoff round. You might be able to figure out where this is going at this point, but basically, if you win the playoff round, then you become an unseeded team for the round of 16. So we already have those 8 teams that I tossed over here. They're waiting. Playoff round happens with these 16 teams that are kind of in the middle of the table right here, right? And then the winners of those 8 ties go ahead to play the 8 teams that already got tossed forward because they finished in the top 8. Now, the whole point of that is to make sure, right? Well, one, because it's the only way that you can properly do a knockout competition where 24 teams make it to the knockouts, right? You can't have a bracket with 24 teams and boil it all the way down to 1. The math doesn't work out. I realize I'm not like a genius mathematician, but the math doesn't work out. Eventually, you get down to 3 teams, and obviously that's not an even number, and so you get screwed. But this also makes matches more important towards the end of the league stage. I kind of like that. I realize I'm getting into my thoughts part before finishing explaining everything else, so I'm going to hold that until the end. If you finish 25 to 36, you are eliminated from the competition. That you don't there's no dropping down anymore, so there's no I finished 3rd in the group and I've got a shot to win the Europa League sort of thing. If you're 25 through 36 in the Champions League stage, you are eliminated. You will not be advancing anywhere. You got to play in the Champions League stage, and that's it. Now, pros and cons. Why did they do this? Well, they did it for money. If you're ever asking yourself why FIFA, UEFA, or anybody else did something, it's for money. If it ends up being good, that was an accident. They did it for money. Okay? Any other whatever words come out of their mouth, today I feel like an immigrant, they did it for money. Okay? And that being said, they're going to make more money from this. There's 2 more matches for every team. That means they're selling more TV rights for more matches. That's just how it works, right? Because there's just so many more matches for them to be able to sell. And you get an extra round of knockouts. An extra round, right? It used to go straight to the round of 16. Now we've got this, we got a round of 16 before the round of 16, right? That's a whole other round of knockouts with drama and big teams and TV money, baby. Right? That's just an extra set of matches that everybody has to play. And it's an extra set of matches that UEFA is able to make money off of. So there is a ton of opportunities to make money. It's not just that. They can also sell something which I also like, which is that the 2 best teams in Europe can technically meet in the league stage, right? Because even if you are a pot 1 team, you can draw another, you have to play 2 other pot 1 teams. Everybody's draw is equal. If you're in pot 4, you still draw 2 pot 4 teams, right? And if you're in pot 1, you still draw 2 pot 1 teams, 2 pot 2 teams, 2 pot 3 teams, and so on. And so Real Madrid can draw Manchester City. Bayern can draw, I don't know, Inter, right? Liverpool, right? These teams can get drawn against each other, where in the group stage previously, often the case that the very best teams that particular year couldn't get drawn into the same group. Well, now that can happen. And that obviously is better TV, and that's going to make UEFA more money. But on the flip side of that, again, with the more money and me also being more interested in it, I think it is one of the great advantages of them switching to this. One of the greatest disadvantages is there are more matches, and that is obviously tough for the players. The other Zealandism that came out today has to do a lot with that, and this has certainly been part of the process that seems to be pushing players over the edge in terms of them being upset by how many matches they actually have to play. But I would lie to you if I said I didn't enjoy the idea of PSG and Manchester City playing in November instead of having to wait for March for that match to happen, and it still could potentially happen in March. We're just getting pot 1 teams playing. Every pot 1 team has to play 2 other pot 1 teams. We're getting huge, above the fold, top of the billing matches that are coming out of this, and that is cool. And there are a few other things that go into this tournament format, shall we call it, that I just want to point out. Thoughts and musings. 1, this is much more PvE than PvP. If you don't know what those are, it's like player versus environment, and they're video game terms. PvP being player versus player. In the group stage, you played everybody else in your group home and away. There was a real familiarity, and if you advanced in the top 2 of your group, then you got to kind of meet your opponent face to face. You got to look them in the whites of their eyes and measure yourself against them in order to try to advance, right? Shoot, if you lost to him once, you had your chance at revenge. If you beat him, you had to prove it and go beat him again, right? Like you had all of that, and storylines were kind of built up inside of those groups. It was like 4 teams being locked in a cage, and only 2.5 would emerge, with the half being the team sent down to the Europa League. Well, now it feels like you're playing against an abstract concept. Right? It's not just because they've added 4 more teams, but it's because it's likely that by the time you get down to the last couple matches in this stage, the teams you're competing against, you haven't played. You'll never play. Right? If you are in 25th, the teams from 21 to 24 and 26, 27, 28, you may have played 1 or 2 of those teams, but you're going to be on the field against none of those teams on the final day, but you're going to be tracking their results and trying to figure out whether you're going to be able to make it into the last 24 or not, or whether you're going to be in the top 8, or whether you're going to be in the top 16 or whatever, right? All of that is going to be more abstract, and you're basically playing against this imaginary bar that's being set by what other teams can achieve. So it's just a different feeling. I don't know exactly how that's going to play out. I know in Football Manager, when this sort of Champions League format is simulated, it is oftentimes razor thin. I mean, from 28 to 22, all within a point. And so 1 goal, 1 draw, 1 win can make all the difference into whether a team actually manages to advance to the knockouts or not. And that brings me to what I think is probably going to be the biggest advantage of this format, which again, they only did it for money. I'm just trying to find the bright side here, and break this down as well as I can, which is the last day is going to be chaotic as shit, right? The storylines are going to be harder to track. right? The storylines really are going to be harder to track up to that final day because you can't just look at the groups and see how everybody's doing, right? You look at this giant abstract table and have to break out the magnifying glass to see that Sparta Prague is up top. And, like, well, my goodness, is that AC Milan down there at the bottom? They must have lost the game, right? Like, you can't create the same storylines leading up to that final day, which is going to suck. But on that final day, there will be chaos. Okay, there's going to be 18 matches on the last day of the Champions League. 18. And a lot of those matches are going to have ramifications for at least one of the two teams and likely both of those two teams. Sure, like 32-36, those teams will be completely out of it even if they win on the last day. That's like a team that's basically already been relegated playing the last few matches of a season. But no, everybody else playing on that final day is going to have something on the line. They are, for one of those teams. And there are going to be, if you're watching the live table on the final day, it's going to be, it's going to look like, what's the Tetris, the falling block game where it's, shit's moving all over the place. Because one goal here and all of a sudden this team shoots up 6 spots and everybody else slides down, and now some other team that didn't do anything in their match man hadn't even started yet. I don't know if they're all kicking off at the same time or not, right? And they've fallen out. Right, things happening all over the continent of Europe are going to be having these massive knock-on effects to who's seeded, who's unseeded, who's in the knockouts, who's not, who goes to the round of 16 immediately, who doesn't, right? And because there's only 8 spots to go to the round of 16, those 8 automatic qualifying spots, there will be big clubs like AC Milan that would expect themselves to be able to reach that are not going to be able to reach it. And they're going to find themselves in the absolute dog days of having to play in an extra playoff round and then be unseeded against the best teams in Europe. I don't hate this system. I don't think it super sucks. But I've also not really seen it play out yet in real life. So we'll see if the fact that you're not able to keep up with, those storylines as the Champions League develops, we'll see if that ends up having a bigger effect than maybe I'm making it out to be. But I don't think it's terrible. I think that it's different, and I think it could be fun in different ways. But at least now you understand how it works and how this is going to work. And maybe tracking this one giant table is going to end up being fun. It's just hard to tell on this first match day. You just track each individual score feels much more separated from the overall plot, when before you could kind of map out clearer paths for teams to make it. I don't know. But it's what we have, right? Because it's not, UEFA isn't a freaking democracy, okay? Like, this is what we've got. And hopefully it's fun, right?